Welcome to the voice of St. Anthony Parish from Allston, Massachusetts, right here on WROL 950 AM 100.3 FM. And you can also hear us at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. Well, we are here every single Monday through Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And during this week, we are listening to Bruce Boccardi. He is the Economics and Labor Advisor to the Small Planet Institute in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He also attends Mass at St. Anthony Parish in Allston, from which this program comes. And so we always like to have him on to discuss some of the issues that he is teaching us about on labor and the economy that affects each and every one of us every single day. And one of the things I end this particular part of the interview, we're going to continue with more of it tomorrow, on how the media doesn't address these issues. So we'll talk about all of that today. Let's switch over. This is what the people were saying according to the Pew poll.
Correct. They're saying that the reduction in union representation, it's like over 58%, says it's bad for the country and for working people. Mm-hmm. Once again, I think there was the older polls, and the Gallup poll, which since 65, it concluded that 68% approve. Actually, 71%. I'm sorry about that. 71% of Americans approved of labor unions. So, then what is that? How does that translate into our political system? Well, basically, our political system, since the Buckley and Bellotti decisions and then Citizens United, those decisions, it's bought and the system is bought and sold.
Now, just to kind of remind us, Citizens United, is that where basically a corporation is a person?
Yes. Okay. And prior to that, there was a Bellotti decision, second here in Massachusetts in 76, and I believe and then the Buckley decision was, I think, in 78. Maybe I have those dates switched around, but both of one of them guaranteed that people could contribute as much as they want, and then the other one, the other decision guaranteed that corporations could contribute as much as they want. This just opened the floodgates, and you had waves and rivers of money flowing in, and of course it was cemented with the decision in Citizens United that gave corporations personhood, which is, think about it, it's sort of strange, but it works out to the advantage of corporations. But today, when it comes to unions, you've got 24 states that prohibit or limit collective bargaining for public sector workers.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Just to kind of clarify things, collective bargaining is you have a union representative and you work out a contract. Is that right?
Correct. Okay. It's guaranteed in the National Labor Relations Act guaranteed that. So it's not something that is frivolous or made up or just in states. It's the law. And but as we know, oftentimes some states will circumvent or they will try to get around certain regulations. And in the United States, we have 24 states, and there is some legislation that the Democrats worked on, and they submitted in a bill it actually was in October of 21, called the Public Service Freedom Act, and it provided collective bargaining rights for public employees, and it prohibited strikes by certain public safety employees, which kind of goes with the territory. Even when I worked in the public sector, we were forbidden to strike, but there were work actions we could do, and we did, depending. But that it's all part of your ability to express your grievances. So that predictably, you've got the Republicans opposing that, and they also they oppose the PRO Act, which the Democrats could have actually gotten that passed in 2009, and they didn't. And this is where the corporate wing of the Democratic Party prevailed. There was also the employee. That was the Employee Free Choice Act, and they weren't able to get that through. And of course, that just to explain the background of that quickly, there are two ways that you can form a union. You can work as a choose a union. It's a secret ballot or voluntary card check recognition. And the secret ballot, it always is an advantage. It goes to the employer because they have meetings and they put propaganda out and they threaten workers. I mean, it becomes a long ordeal. But a voluntary card check, which is what the EFCO for the EFCA Employee Free Choice Act that was designed for, was that if you got a card check, that was it. You could then go to the bargaining table. And
what specifically is a card check?
Well, a card check is where members basically they sign cards, and
Okay.
all you need is well for the secret ballot election. All you need is 30% of the workers to show an interest in having an election.
Oh.
Yeah, but that's the rub though. That's the problem, because even though you have that, this gives the employers a lot of time to run an anti-union campaign, 6 to 8, 10 weeks. And by the time the election comes around, you can have your intimidation factor in there, and threats and veiled threats, and many companies and workers and employees, they've found out that this is what happens. So the EFCA would have dispensed with that aspect, so that the election right now, corporations, they can. To me, they don't have the right to distort an election process. This is what they do under the present NLRB rule, which is it's the Act, the National Labor Relations Act.
Yeah.
Right, NLRA. That's the Act that's implemented.
Okay.
So that would have obviated that particular problem. And to me, if you have a democratic election, one side shouldn't hold all the power and control all the media and control the timeline of the election. But that's what most union elections happen today. Now, I mentioned the PRO Act before, and I didn't want to confuse that one, but the PRO Act was actually passed by the House in March of 2021, and this was it was named after a late, fairly progressive labor leader, Richard Trumka.
Can I just throw,
Sure.
that was during, in 2021, the House was Democratic.
Right, correct. So they passed it, of course. That would have given unions and employers the ability to override state level right to work. So they call them right to work, and in union culture, we refer to those as right to work for less laws, because that's actually the result. But it would have given the unions and employers the ability to override the strike protections, and it would enhance strike protections, and it would ban the employers from holding captive audiences. And it's kind of it was similar to the EFCA Act. But anyway, it passed the House of Representatives in 2020, but in 2021, in both years, but it never reached the floor because you had Kirsten Sinema, independent from Arizona, and you had Senator Mark Kelly, a Democrat from Arizona, and they declined to back the bill. And the filibuster required 60 votes, so that's failed. But I mean, it's still out there. But I'm just trying to point out, it's not. The Republicans definitely they other than Abraham Lincoln, who actually was. It's sort of ironic because Lincoln is considered one of our greatest presidents for many reasons, and one of his speeches, he was a Republican and he understood how our economic model worked, and he wrote, I can quote him, he said, quote, "Labor is prior to and independent of capital. Capital is only the fruit of labor and could never have existed if labor had not existed first.
Wow.
Labor is the superior of capital and deserves the much higher concentration," unquote. And that's just part of a speech that he gave. And he understood, and he was a Republican, but you're never going to find too many Republicans saying that now.
You never know. You got to be fair here.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what's interesting, though, to go back to the circle back, was in 2023, we had the highest number of public sector union bills introduced in state legislatures since 2018. And of course, that had to do with the Janus ruling, which I talked about that last
We
time.
talked about that last time, yeah.
Right. Janus ruling basically said, that free riders or people who didn't have to belong to the union, but they still could reap the benefits of being represented by a union, and that's a whole other story. But what that did, it gave rise to a lot of, like I said, these public sector bills that were introduced in state legislatures. And, you've got, look at the numbers, it's been tracked and there's hundreds, but whether they get through is really, and you'd have to check each state and figure them out. And most of the states that are obviously Republican controlled, they are not going to even let those kinds of bills get to the floor in any way, shape, or manner.
Don't forget to tell others where they can find our program. You can hear us on WROL 950 AM and WROLradio.com at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. We then podcast the program on your favorite podcast platform and at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. You can also hear us at our parish website.
I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day.
You can find your
Let
cable
others
channel
know where
at
you can find us and
spread the word about the Catholic Audio
and you
Media
can watch online
podcast.
on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. If you would like to support our program, please consider a donation to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. There are several ways to consider this. One is to purchase any of our merchandise, which you can find at the shopping tab at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. There are coffee mugs there. There's also my latest book, Encounter Christ in Your Humanity, all of which you can find at the shopping tab at CatholicAudiomedia.com. You can also donate to the show directly through either the Donate tab, also at CatholicAudiomedia.com, or by sending a donation through the U.S. Postal Service with your questions and comments at 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. That's St. Anthony Parish, 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. Finally, the best way you can support our parish is to attend Mass on Sundays at 10 o'clock and be a part of our parish. We thank you for any support you would like to give to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts, the sponsoring parish for this media outreach to Catholics and other Christians in the WROL, WEZE, and podcast listening audience. In Cristo vivimos.